What is an analogy that gets your point across perfectly, but is wildly inappropriate? One I heard from my grandfather, about a kid that just didn't have a clue. He'd come out of a barrel of titties sucking his thumb. That guy is more confused than a toddler at a titty bar. I used to teach a skydiving course, and one of the first things we teach you is how to arch, which keeps you stable while falling down. Anyway, one guy just wasn't getting it. He was trying to arch with his chest instead of his hips, so I told him it's like getting a BJ through a chain link fence. He got it immediately. My boss was once describing the size of a small crate of equipment that we needed to get sent to a freight moving company. When the delivery driver asked over the phone for roughly how big is the crate, my boss replied with, about the size of a 6-year-old's coffin. I literally fell out of my chair. This actually seems the most relevant and likely example. Everyone else is just doing hilarious one-liners. Maybe not wildly inappropriate, but I've heard Hund's rule. Electrons in one subshell of an atom will fill each orbital before doubling up, likened to peeing in a restroom with lots of vacant urinals available. No one's gonna come up and share a urinal with you unless they really have to. Placeholder post until I can come up with a quip about sp hybridization. When on the golf course and putting, if the ball circles the hole but does not go in, my dad will say, "She had it in her mouth, then her dad walked in." Sounds like the kind of joke a dad makes if he only has sons. This won a special award in the Bulwer Lytton Fiction Contest in 2012. As an ornithologist, George was fascinated by the fact that urine and feces mix in birds' rectums to form a unified, homogeneous slurry that is expelled through defecation. Although eyeing Greta's face and sensing the reaction of the congregation, he immediately realized he should have used a different analogy to describe their relationship in his wedding vows. As a kid, I was pretty much clueless about non-traditional families. When I was 10 or so, my single aunt had a beautiful baby girl. I could not figure out where her dad was. It was a mystery to me and I wanted to solve it. I really did not get anywhere with my parents or my aunt. They simply did not want to discuss it. I remember sitting under an oak tree with my grandpa on a warm summer evening. I saw my chance and took it. I explained my confusion at not knowing who my cousin's dad was and frustration that no one would talk to me about it. Grandpa smiled and said, "Bug, these things are not always easy to understand, and sometimes it is not our place to understand them. But you can think of it like this. When you put your hand in a blackberry bush to grab a blackberry, most times you will get poked by a thorn or two. The sad fact is, it is very hard to know exactly which thorn it was that poked you." I had no clue what he was talking about, but that seemed to put the issue to rest for my little mind. A good bit later, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I finally got what he was trying to say and just laughed and laughed. All these years later, it still makes me laugh. Grandpa was the best. I always liked how David Thorne described opinions. Opinions are like nipples. Everybody has one. Some have firm points, others are barely discernible through layers, and some are displayed at every opportunity regardless of whether the audience has stated "I am interested in your nipples" or not. Cats have 19. Till cats are very opinionated. I saw this guy on a motorcycle once. It was gorgeous. The way the chrome blended with the black, and how every detail and inch of it was spotless clean. I walked up to the owner and said, "I know nothing of motorcycles, but this is one beautiful beast." He turned to me, and I stared right into the black pits of his sunglasses as he etched this beautiful sentence into my mind. "You don't have to have sex to know you wanna frick." This happened 4 years ago, and I pray I never forget. If people complained they were big boned or couldn't lose weight, my grandmother would say no one came out of Auschwitz fat. My friend's grandparents met in Auschwitz. As his grandfather got old and grumpy, he'd always play the food was better back in Auschwitz card. Excuse my poor translation, hope it makes sense. Literal translation: if you snoop into some other guy's underwear, you will indeed find bigger dong. This means do not snoop into someone else's business. You will just find fault in yourself and gonna make you unhappy. It's funny to me that no matter what language or culture, no matter the puns or sayings, the bigger dong thing is always prevalent for men. On a geology field trip, we were looking at a playa lake. Someone asked what was the deepest the water ever gets. My professor said just deep enough to drown a baby, and walked away. That's not an analogy, it's a freaking confession. Success is like being pregnant. People will congratulate you, but no one knows how many times you were fricked before you got there. To which they look you in the eye and reply 80 times. I've been fricked 80 times. Edit. Grammar. I can get a pretty good look at a T-bone steak by sticking my head up a bull's butt, but I'd rather take the butcher's word for it. If I made a piece of crap and slapped a guarantee on it, all you'd have was a guaranteed piece of crap. I once had a manager who, completely out of the blue one day, that is, he was never one to really swear in the office, when a client was pee with us, said well, if they're gonna frick us in the butt, at least they'll end up with crap on their dongs. It was the most bizarre yet strangely funny thing I've ever heard at my job. I was once on a conference call with about 15 people from 3 different offices, including clients. We were having trouble solving a certain issue and suddenly a colleague bursted out with this nugget of wisdom. Like Hitler once said, we need a final solution. The 5 seconds of shocked awkward silence afterwards was pure gold. Procrastination is just like masturbation. It feels good at the time, but in the end you're just fricking yourself. Well, they do go hand in hand with each other. My boyfriend gets super annoyed at me because every time he's doing something, I'll chime in with advice on a better way to do it. On one such occasion, we were in the kitchen with my mother, and after I'd given another piece of unsolicited advice, my boyfriend said, look, I'm the one fricking this cat, you're just holding its tail. My mum lost her crap and a few months later, used the same line on my dad. Everyone on earth is annoyed by that BTW, not just your BF, just saying. Being in the military is kinda like being with a pushy guy. Your meals may be free, and you always have a bed to sleep in, but you're gonna get fricked in the butt whether you like it or not. I see you were in the Navy as well. Finding a girlfriend at a tech school is like finding a parking spot on a busy day. They're either taken, disabled, or way out there. For the girls, the odds are good, but the goods are odd. This one has become popular in my office. If someone is making excuses, don't tell me about the labor pains, just show me the baby. I don't care if someone fricks goats, as long as they don't bring the goats to work. My grandfather on employees' personal lives. Hooking up is like free pizza. Sometimes it's not good, sometimes it's great. Either way you're gonna eat it cause it's free. Sex is like pizza. When it's good, it's great, and when it's bad, it's still pretty good. IDK about you, but I'm not eating crappy pizza even if it's free. I am not sure how well it works in English. It comes from the fact that in Sweden all young teenagers are riding mopeds and think they look so cool, while older people think they are embarrassing. At har sex med en jockeysaw som att åka moped. Det or tills någon ser dig. Freaking a fat person is like riding a moped. It is fun until someone sees you. In English I've heard this with a double entendre on the word ride as, they're fun to ride, but you wouldn't want to be seen with one. Watching your wife give birth is like watching your favorite pub burn down. They might rebuild, but deep down you know it'll never be the same. An 80-year-old man was having his annual checkup, and the doctor asked him how he was feeling. I've never been better, he boasted. I've got an 18-year-old bride who's pregnant, and having my child. What do you think about that? The doctor considered this for a moment, then said, let me tell you a story. I knew a guy who was an avid hunter. He never missed a season, but one day went out in a bit of a hurry, and he accidentally grabbed his umbrella instead of his gun. The doctor continued, so he was in the woods, and suddenly a grizzly bear appeared in front of him. He raised up his umbrella, pointed it at the bear, and squeezed the handle. And do you know what happened? The doctor queried. Dumbfounded. The old man replied, number. The doctor continued. The bear dropped dead in front of him. That's impossible, exclaimed the old man. Someone else must have shot that bear. That's kind of what I'm getting at, replied the doctor. When someone is being vague about what they want from you. I only have 2 balls, and neither one of them are crystal. God, you people make me ashamed that I haven't thought of these first. Being religious is like having a dong. It's fine to have one and it's fine to be proud of it, just don't whip it out in public and shove it down people's throats. And be sure to examine it every so often to make sure it's healthy. The average human being has one testis and one ovary, sometimes followed by asking the people present the number of testes and ovaries each have. Used when talking about how statistics can be true and still worthless without the proper parameters. A statistician is a guy who has his head in an oven and his feet in a freezer and says on average he feels just fine. An old one. Arguing on the internet is like the Special Olympics. It doesn't matter who wins. At the end of the day you're all retards. Really being in love with someone is like having herpes. Sometimes it flares up, is painful, and everyone can see it. Other times it's dormant. No one suspects a thing. And it's not so bad, but if you have it you got that crap for life. And you gotta deal with it. Relationships are like a fart. The harder you have to try the more likely it's going to be crap. When someone is telling you how to do something you are quite proficient at, I don't come to where you work and slap the dong out of your mouth. Gonna get buried now, but a good one I heard. Arguing with an idiot is like playing chess with a pigeon. It doesn't matter how skilled you are, the pigeon will still knock all the pieces over, crap all over the board, and strut around like it's the king. When people are being stubborn over stupid crap, I love making a slavery analogy. Slavery is an important tradition held by almost every culture since the dawn of time. But at some point we decided that even though slavery was literally a cornerstone of entire cultures and economic systems, that owning another person isn't cool. So just it's always been this way doesn't mean it's freaking right. Roommates don't really like being compared to slave owners just because I want to reorganize the living room and they don't. But I do make a good point. I just love the image of you responding to every request from a roommate with a profound speech about slavery. Student in an art class I taught, complaining after a bad critique, but I spent a long time on that. Well, I spend a long time in the bathroom sometimes. The result is still crap. When I want to delegate a menial task to someone and they ask why, sometimes I tell them, Hitler didn't kill all of those Jews by himself now, did he? I use this one to describe my old boss all the time. If there were 9 guys in an alley sucking off 10 guys, my old boss would be the guy with 2 dongs in his mouth. Conversation with some friends when one mentions he messed around with a dude and probably would again despite being straight. Another friend points out that he's essentially bisexual. His reply, I can visit Europe. That doesn't make me a European. People used to ask me how long my programming assignments for school would take. I would tell them it's like taking a crap. I don't know I'm done until I'm done. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.